A big congratulations to you for being able to make it to this class. My name is Godson Chinweuba and I'll be your coach for this training session. This is World-Class Design Masterclass, and the aim of this training is to get designers and aspiring designers to come up to the level such that they can become world-class designers. Okay, it is immaterial of the fact that you might be a beginner or you might be a pro. Please take some time out to go through every single part of this course, get your writing materials down, and jot down necessary things. Now, it has been observed for some time over the years that most people just start their design journey without learning the rudiments of design, without learning the key things for designing. So thereby making the mistakes over and over without taking note of necessary things that they are supposed to have corrected while designing. So in this class, we'll be addressing some of these things, and then we'll be trying to fix some of these things by letting you know the necessary principles and the necessary rules that works for each aspect of design. Okay, so a little brief about myself. I am a graphic artist and I'm a UI UX designer. I've also developed websites, I've developed mobile applications, and I've coached a lot of persons. I've hosted different trainings. Over 6,000 persons have been trained under my mentorship in different programs in different locations. And I'm glad to be your trainer for this course. So please take out some time and have proper study. Okay, so I'm going to go over to what design is, and I'm going to do justice about the explanation. I know you have a lot of definitions in your head now, but I'm going to have a central definition I would want us to pick something from. Okay, I define design as the orderly combination of elements such as lines, shapes, text, colors, and images in order to translate an info or in order to translate an information. Now, the key thing here you have to take note of is info, right? The aim is to translate an information, right? Or to send a message. Okay, so if you have the combination of these things, these elements have been listed or even more, and the whole thing is not summing up together to send a message to your user, that means there are some errors you have in your design, which has to be taken care of, right? So you have to make sure that your design is sending a message to be able to have it work well as a proper design. So that said, we'll go over to the necessary elements for visual design. We're going to be doing justice to a whole lot of them, and I would like you to take note of the different elements and how they work. Okay, the first one we'll be talking about is lines. Lines is one of the basic elements. The lines are actually of different forms. You can have them as simple lines this way. You can have dotted lines. You can have different form of lines. Your wavy lines could also come in different strokes of lines. They're all different structures that you can adopt in designing. And the necessary thing here is to choose an order. Is it going to be a randomized placement? Is it going to be kind of swivel? The different structures you want to use have to be specified clearly, and you don't just use one pattern and then use the other one and then have a scattered arrangement in the whole design. Now, there are some necessary things to note while using any of the elements that you come across. So for the lines, it's necessary to choose the very one you want to use amongst the whole structures you have, and many more. Just choose the ones you want to use and have a consistent structure going on. Okay, the next one we'll talk about is form. Form, as we may have it, as you can see on the screen, appears to be your 3D looks, right? Extrusions. Now, extrusions happen with two key things in mind, having lighting and shadows. You can have lighting from one direction, like this, and then a shadow comes in the other direction, right? So the position of the light actually has much role to play when it comes to form, right? So when you have the lighting coming from this angle, it is obvious that you would apparently have a shadow here. Now, when you have lighting coming from, say, two angles, say one here and another one here, apparently you have shadow somewhere around this section. So it is necessary to know what's the direction of the light. You don't have to have the light coming from here and then you have a shadow here. That would be a wrong placement. So it is necessary to know if you're creating a custom 3D view, for example, what position is the lighting. For example, you don't have lighting coming from here and then the next design, the lighting is coming from the other section, right? That would alter the structure of your design. So it's necessary to know the direction of light you want to use and make sure that it's global to the full design. For example, you have this design here and we're assuming the lighting is coming from here. So same thing has to happen in all the different structures you have going on. For example, if we're going to cast shadow for this, then the shadow has to reflect to this point because the lighting is coming from here. So it is necessary to know what direction of the light is to be able to get a better form. And this is essential for those who are doing photo manipulation. It's necessary to know that the shadow that your images cast or the manipulations that you've done cast is with respect to the lighting you have. So choose the direction of the global light you have there. Assume that there is a light placed somewhere, there is sunlight or whatever placed somewhere around here. That means this should be casting shadows in these directions. Right, so it is necessary to note that so you don't come and make a design that will be casting shadow in the position of the light. That would alter the structure. So you could also have multiple shadow structures whereby one is casting from here and then other one is casting from here. But it's all dependent on the light. You can have multiple lights coming up in different sections of your screen, and that would affect the way your form would take its place. Okay, so let's talk about the next thing, which is shape. We have diverse shapes. The most basic shapes come in two forms, either with pointed edges or with curve. Right, so it's necessary to choose a pattern. For example, I have a design I'm creating. It is necessary to choose, am I using this or am I using something that would have smooth edges? For example, it could still be a rectangle, but rectangle with smooth edges, just like the one we have here. All right. So it is necessary to know the exact structure you want to use and be consistent with it. For example, for websites, for some of you who will be designing websites, you'll see a website has a button. The first button is coming this way, the second button is coming this way, and then the third button is coming this way, maybe with cover at this point. Now that is an inconsistent structure. For some other designs, you might not have these shapes coming in handy this way. You might have it coming in maybe to just hold a content, an image, and the other one is coming in to hold maybe a text right up that is placed somewhere. All right. So it is necessary to know the structure you want to use and be consistent with it. For example, I want to use this kind of shapes to hold images and this kind of shapes to hold text. I have to be consistent with the pattern I've created and have a particular order for it. You can have a combination of maybe this comes in two places this way. For example, after the circle, I have these two shapes come up, and then I have the same order repeats, maybe a circle, and then the same thing again happens over and over. So it's necessary to choose the flow of shape you want. It mustn't be those geometric shapes. It could also be an abstract shape. For example, I have this as an abstract shape. Now, where is it going to be positioned? You can also have maybe an abstract shape that have curves and points mixed together that way. So it is all just left to you to decide which pattern you want to use, which approach you want to use. Is it curves oriented? Is it point oriented? So when you've decided on the exact one you want to use, it would allow you be able to use that one comfortably and have a clear and an aesthetic form for your design. So it is necessary to choose shapes rightly and have a clearly defined components that you're going to use. So for example, like I explained, if you're going to be using circle and the rectangle structure, you make it consistent and don't switch along the line so it doesn't make your design look inconsistent. Okay, the next one is texture. I'm not going to be saying much about texture. Texture can be created customly. You can also have some of the default ones created from nature, right, and from other different structures you have around. So it's necessary to know the different structures of texture you have, and then go ahead to pick the ones you want to use and blend them well. So these are a few examples we have. Like for this slide I'm using, you can see I have a little texture of some dashed lines all over everywhere. Alright, could also be a particular texture you want to use. You could also decide to use any texture of your choice to have the look you want to have. So that is that about texture. We'll talk about fonts. Now, when I'm talking about fonts, I'm actually talking about texts. So, but what I decided to use fonts instead is to be able to talk about what we need to know about different fonts. Now, there are various fonts you need to know. There's signature fonts, right? There's the corporate font. There's tall font, right? There's the abstract font. Alright, I normally group them in these four categories. Now you have the sans, you have the serifs, they all fall under corporate fonts. Right. Now it is very necessary to note that when you're using a particular corporate font for your design, you don't use more than one for the content. Now let's assume this is your design, and then you have a title somewhere around here. Now you have other contents everywhere. It is necessary to note that every part of this other content, for clarity's sake, you have to use corporate font. And now, because we have mentioned that you have to use corporate font, that doesn't mean that you come and use, for example, you use Montserrat here, and then go ahead and use Morganite here, and then go ahead and use Plain here. Now, that's wrong. If you're picking a corporate font, pick one font and pick one font category. For example, for a particular font, you might have a regular version, and then you have a condensed version of the same font. Alright, now if you have these two categories for one font, it is necessary for you to pick one. For example, if you're using irregular, you go ahead and use regular. If you're using condensed, you go ahead and use condensed, and not switch from regular to condensed within this. It would alter your design and make it look as if you're using two different fonts. So it's necessary to pick one font specifically and go ahead and use that in your design, so it gives your design that aesthetic look. Now, it is also necessary to note that for any other thing apart from content, we can have a combination of any of these fonts: the signature font, the corporate font, the tall font, or the abstract font. Right? You can have combination of that, and I'm going to quickly explain how you can combine them. Now, before I go to that, for content, you can have tall font coming in for content on specific conditions. For example, a movie poster, you would see content written with tall fonts. For example, the name of the act, the production details, and the likes. Those can be written in tall fonts, and you see the tall fonts somewhere how like this, appearing tall that way, and maybe not very clear to read. Right? We'll be seeing different cases, or maybe an example of a design that has that, and we'll also see how it works. So, for example, if you're having that kind of setting, you can use a tall font. Now, the main aim for that kind of setting is to be able to allow us have just the theme itself be the main area of concentration and not the other content. So we use that to create a little contrast between the full thing we have on the screen and make the focus to be directly on the theme. So we'll be seeing how to also pick the combination of these fonts for the theme or the title, right? So, and I've already explained here that if you're picking a corporate font, make sure you're picking a particular group. Don't pick regular and mix it with condensed. It will alter what you have, and you have two different looks. Okay, now you can combine your regular font category. For example, when you have a regular font that has different variants, like the bold version, the semi-bold, the semi-bold italics, you have different combinations. Now you can use it in this order. For example, apart from your title here or the main theme, you could have headings. For example, the heading could be the bold variant of this, It could also be maybe the italicized version or maybe the slim version, while other contents are the slim versions. So you have to structure what you are using. So for example, you have heading. So the heading takes the bold version, the other part takes the light version, another heading takes the bold version, the other part takes the light version. Keep going in that order such that you'll be able to have clarity in what you have there. All right. So with that said, it's easy for you to go ahead and pick just one font for the whole content and still have your work look nice. Now, the necessary thing is you can differentiate between the headings and the main write-up with the font size, being bigger or being bold this way, or maybe having a particular emphasis on it, say either being bold or maybe being underlined, or having any other structure that you want to give it there. So it is all left to you to choose the exact structure you want to give it, and you have the difference between the titles or the headings there and the main content. Now, coming to the main theme for designs. For example, if I have a main theme that way, it is necessary to have the knowledge of how to combine this. So for a theme, I can have a combination of signature fonts and a corporate font. That is one. So the first one is a combination of these two. The second one could be a combination of the signature font and the tall font. Now the third one could also be the combination of the tall font and the abstract font, or the corporate font and the abstract font. Now corporate font here can combine with any of these fonts here, any of these font categories you have here. The corporate font can combine with any of them. Now, it's also necessary that you don't choose more than two. At most, in the worst case scenario, where you're choosing any other thing outside corporate font, then you can add corporate font as a third font. Now, if you're choosing up to 3 fonts, there must be corporate fonts there, and then other 2 fonts. Now, and it is necessary to note that when you are using a combination of 3 fonts, it's necessary to note that you don't have to use these remaining 3 fonts here as the full 3 fonts. You can pick any of them, any 2 amongst them, and then have the third one to be the corporate font. So with this, you notice that the corporate font is more like a base font that can be used in every aspect of your design, and that will always make your work look nice. So I'm going to just clear off this, and let's actually have the exact thing we need to have on the screen. Okay, so that explains the font for us. So let's quickly talk about colors. Now, talking about colors, this has been a major issue for most designers. I'll be doing a little justice to this to explain the basic things about colors and what you should know about colors. I'm going to just switch back to my pen and then let's go ahead. So, there are basic colors we already know from primary school, from elementary classes. Down to this level, we already know about some primary colors. We have blue, we have red, we have yellow as primary colors. Now, from these 3 colors, we actually got some of the colors we already know as secondary colors. This, and the lights we have here. Right, and then from there we graduated to the tertiary colors. Now, the major thing is knowing that these colors have this exact names, or knowing that they have this shades, or were formed from these exact colors. That's one thing. The other thing is to know how to combine these colors. And we're going to be talking about how to actually combine these colors, whether being a primary color, or being a secondary color, being a tertiary color. How do we combine them to actually have something tangible? Now, with the arrows you're seeing here, you're seeing an arrow that's showing complementary color selection, right? With arrows, you see complementary color selection, and then with that, you're able to explain some few things. So let's see the next thing. Here is color combination red and green, picked from this natural thing we have here. This should be pepper. Okay, so now this shows us that most of these color principles are actually derived from nature. Okay, so you see that the color red and green as being combined here can easily flow together because it is appealing to the eye by nature, or by default you see that most of these colors go together, not because of any special thing, but because naturally they already flow together. So these principles actually explain some of the things behind we having this natural colors appearing the way they appear. Right? So complementary colors could be these two, for example, this and this. Right? You could also have these two. Right? You could also have, the major thing is the exact opposite one is the complementary of the other. Right? So that is how complementary colors work, and you can have any of this in the color wheel. Right? So this, we call this the color wheel, and you already saw how we were able to derive the color wheel from this formation of complementary colors here, combining primary colors to form your secondary colors to form your tertiary colors. Now that actually gives us the color wheel, and most of the colors you'll be selecting are already in the color wheel. So these combinations that you're going to learn within this class would help you know how to select proper colors and have better designs this time. Okay, the next thing we'll talk about is your analogous. So we've been able to talk about complementary, and we saw that this was picked from the nature. Alright, the red and the green was picked directly from this. Let's also see analogous. Analogous actually talks about three close range colors. For example, we could have a combination of this, this, and this way, this three, that way, to be an analogous color. It could be from anywhere, right? The major thing is we're talking about the three closest colors within the colorway. So if you pick one color, for example, say your brown color is red, you could have a combination of these three. You could have a combination of these three. You could also have a combination of these three, right? You can't have a combination of something off that place if you want to use the analogous approach to pick your color. So it is necessary to know what approach you want to use. Do you want to use complementary colors? That means you are having two colors as your brand color, your main color and a complementary. You have that one. Now if you're using analogous, it talks about three close colors. Now the normal thing to do is actually to pick those colors from pick a main color and then pick the close range colors from it that way. Right? Now, most times we talk about analogous colors this way. You see the primary color setting there, right? The primary or secondary colors, you can easily pick any of them as the main colors and then go ahead to see other colors coming there, right? So you have your primary color here, blue, and then you are having a combination of maybe this or maybe the next thing there, right, to form the analogous version. Okay, so it is necessary to know which one is your main color. So you choose the main brand color and then choose the color principle you want to use to derive the other colors for it. So we've talked about these two, complementary and analogous. Let's see the next one. We have the triadic format there, which works this way. You have one color and then you skip three colors to get the next one. Then skip another three colors to get the next one. So even if we're picking this, what do we do? From going from right to skip 1, 2, 3, and then we'll get the next one to be this. We'll skip 1, 2, 3, and then get the next one to be this. So having this combination this way to be another one. And you could have more colors coming up within the same context. Alright, so it's necessary to know, like I said, to know the exact color combination you want to have and the principle you want to use to get that. So let's talk about the next one. You can see most of these ones, you see they are picked from nature. Most of these principles are picked from nature. You can see this is picked from this flower and picked from even the flower petal, the flower leaf and other necessary things around it. Same thing happens here, right? You can see this is picked from same tree, same plant is having same colors, right, all around it. You have your orange, you have your yellow, and your purple and your green, all on one plant that way. All right, the next one is your split complementary. Okay, with your split complementary, you can see an example on the screen here, picked from another different flower that has a combination of green. You have your what I call that purple. Okay, it's in between purple and red. Okay, so you see that color there, and then you have your yellow. Alright, so that is that, and some of these things are necessary things that we need to take note of before choosing color. So you have seen different versions here. We've seen complementary, we've seen analogous, we've seen triadic, we've seen split complementary. Now, any of these can be used for different color selections. So there are other ones that we can also use, but I'm going to be showing that in this chart. Okay, so in this chart we have the full 6 themes here. There are so many other ones for monochromes where you have a single color monotones, the lights where you have single color coming through all that way, just like what we have here in mine. It could be different shades of same color, which is maybe making some percentage of black to be part of the color, or some percentage of white to be part of the color to lighten it up, to brighten it up. Okay, so that's that. We have talked about this, and this already. So the last two is your rectangle and your square. So you can just check out this chart and use this as a guide to know the exact color you are to use and how you want to use them. So the major thing is to pick a primary color first. So for example, you've gotten a design to do, and this brand tells you that they want their brand color, their major brand color is red. You can go ahead and use 2 colors. If you have decided to use 2 colors to create the design, it is necessary for you to pick using the complementary color option. If you have decided to use up to 3 colors, you can also decide to use the analogous color approach. If you have decided to use 3 colors too, you can also use either this or the split complementary. Now, if you decide anything more than 3 combinations, then you should be using the rectangle or the square color combination approach there to be able to get the exact colors you want to use for proper design. Now, another thing that we would possibly talk about here for colors is you can also pick colors from different things. Say, for example, we have a design, you have an image already like what we have here, and you actually have a design to make. You can decide to pick the colors directly from the image. But let's say the design is needed to be made and the brand color is red, and this image must be used for the design. Then you have to do some color balancing to get this to suit to what you have and be able to have the design work with it that way. So those are necessary things to take note of while selecting colors and while choosing the pattern of color you want to use. There are other things to also note. For example, if you don't have a brand color already, you want to have a particular brand color, you can go ahead and check out color psychology to know the different color psychologies that you have to apply to be able to know what does this color speak about brand, right? On my social media handles, from time to time, I'll be releasing some things about these different things that we're talking about here, and it will guide us on different things we need to know about design, right? Things like tips like this color case and the likes. So we'll address most of those issues there. Okay, let's go to the next thing. Having talked about color and color combinations, let's talk about color formats. There are different color formats that we have already, and I'm going to just be picking these 2 to talk about them. We have CMYK and we have RGB. Right? You can also see the CMYK as CMY in some places. So the K there stands for black, while the C stands for cyan, M for magenta, then Y for yellow. Now you can see the combination of how the RGB was formed. Okay, the combination of magenta and cyan gave us blue, and the combination of yellow and cyan gave us green. We have yellow and red, and magenta giving us red that way. So the combination of everything would apparently give you black. Okay, so this is it about this color format. There are 2 things that you most likely would do as a designer. You're designing to either go and print a particular design, or you're designing to share on smart devices, on social media, on different platforms. Now, if you are designing to actually print, it is necessary because of the machines that you might be using to do the printing. It's necessary, very, very necessary to save the format as CMYK, right? It is very necessary you do that. So if you are actually saving for print, right? If you're saving for print, I'm going to just clear this, let me write it well. If you're saving for print, you use CMYK for that version. And then if you're actually saving for smart devices, then please use RGB. Right? Now, if you're using RGB on smart devices, alright, you'd have a clearer view of what you have. For example, one of the colors that do pose a little challenge when designed with some softwares is green. You have your lemon green, for example. For those of you who are already designing, you can try that out later to see the results. Especially, I've noticed that with CorelDRAW. I think I've noticed that with Photoshop too at some point. And so a few settings that you have might just help you something like that. And new versions of some of the softwares, those have been controlled, right? But it's still very necessary to take note of the different formats you're saving with, because some of the machines you use don't understand the RGB. Most of the new machines would still flow with RGB and still be able to deliver your work well. But if you're going through the some of the manual processes for printing, then you actually have to switch back your color mode or color format to CMYK to be able to have a better print view. Okay, so that is that. Now, if you're also saving a file for preview on smart devices, it's necessary to save it in RGB. Why? Because you can have colors like that, lemon green I said, and some other colors come out too shouty while you want them to appear just normal and mild, right? So some of those colors would come up very, very bright, brighter than how you imagined it to be, and that wouldn't give a good view for what your design is trying to preach. So it's necessary you have a better structure for your colors. Okay, so having said that, we have other color formats. You have HSL and so many other ones. Alright, so you can just look up for color formats there. You have your lab color, grayscale, and likes. So we're not going to be talking more about those ones for now. Why I explain this is so you'll be able to know your saving formats for different structures. So you might have been designing before and then you'll be having issues with, okay, this is my design, when printed, they are complaining that it's not appearing fine. So this is the solution to that. Get that resolved. Okay, let me play that and let's talk about the next thing. Now we have images. Images are one of the necessary things that actually gives your design a lift. And I'm going to just talk about the different forms of images, and then we'll talk about how to use images and where to use images. Okay, we have two major forms of image, an open image and a closed image. Yeah, we have these two forms. So an open image is an image that has a transparent ending, or like an open end this way. You have a closed image as an image that has a solid end this way, right? So, for example, you want to create a flyer that has to be on social media, and then maybe you have created your size in the box, size you want to use, and then you put this image somewhere around here, and then it's just rigid this way. And then another text is here. Now you're having all the sides empty. Now, for a proper design, or to have a more better look, there's a need to make sure that these edges are actually faded out this way. So it's open to design, so it would be part of it. For example, if you have a solid color here, for example, you have green or you have red here, that would be too obvious. But if it is faded out that way, right, if you have the whole sides opened up to the design itself, it will make it look as part of the design and not standing alone. So that is the need for having an open image in some of the designs. Now, are there cases where you can have a closed image? Yes, there are cases where you can have a closed image. For example, I want to have this and then have my write-up below, for example, this way, within a box or something. Now, here, this is enclosed and we also want this enclosed. Now, this approach would flow very fine because this is enclosed in a specific shape, not just randomized. You can also enclose it in a box shape that way, and you still have your structure very fine. The major thing is, if you're using an enclosed image, it shouldn't, it would have some issues when it's staying at the side. It won't really have the liberty to express itself within your design. Now, you can still have very nice write-ups at the side, but it is very better and very cool to have, if you're having a closed image, to have it separate on one section while the content is on the other section. This structure would be more cool compared to this structure where this part is looking for how to belong in your design, and this section is already being part of design. So everything is hanging at this, in this kind of case, while in this case, everything is still assuming to be part of the design. So if you still want a hanging approach, I would advise you use either this or this approach where the content of the closed image is centered or need to be part of the main design and not placed at the side, leaving spaces at the top or the bottom somewhere. Alright, so it is necessary to know the exact structure to take, alright, and then take it well. Now, another case where you can also have closed image and have it work well is when you have lists of different images. For example, you have a list of images, group of images grouped in different forms, so you can have closed images working very fine in that case. Alright, but why it will work fine is because you have made a specific pattern of arrangement. It can't be scattered and look fine. Alright, you can't have it scattered anyhow and then you expect it to look fine. That way you wouldn't have it very fine. But you can also have it randomized, say for example, depending on the shape you're using, and it will still have some message to pass. Now, it could be a message of making one bigger than others, while the other ones, for example, it's your social network design where one would come up this way and then other ones that are smaller are in their different circles and just that way. Alright, so these are different forms of image that we could adapt to create awesome stuff and do wonderful things. So it is necessary to know the exact form you want to use and use it very well to do a clean design. Okay, so there are core design principles I would want to share with us to enable us flow at a better level and to enable us do tangible stuff. So we'll be exploring most of them and we'll be seeing the depths of them. So the first one we're talking about is balance. Now, balance is very necessary. For example, you have a design that has been made already, and then you're having a very dark shaded stuff here, and then all these places are light. Now, that doesn't create serious balance in your design. It creates a one-sided design where the focus is dragged to just one section and every other place is looking scanty. Even though you have text all around that are still light, it makes here the main area of focus, which is not very, very healthy for your design. You still want some concentration to come to the other side. So it is necessary to balance up other sections, maybe with colors, right? Some darker colors or some colors that are reflecting the exact thing you have there in the initial design. So let's quickly see an example of this. In this design, there are different forms. There's a symmetrical balance for this very section where you have the colors all around trying to appear in different sections. For example, here you have this stuff happening here and you still have something like that happening here. Let's assume it's not existing in this section. You see, it would create a one-sided attention, right? So it is necessary to create the balance in every design just this way. But let's assume the text here is just placed here and no text is here. That doesn't create the balance there. So it is necessary, apart from adding colors and making sure that contents are placed at both sides, it is also necessary to maintain the structure. So if you give to the right, you give to the left. If you're not using the symmetrical approach, you can also use the asymmetrical approach where you can arrange your content in a particular order where one thing is staying and then you're using colors to balance over other things at different sections. So the symmetrical approach, you see that it is actually divided into two, and then you have more like a photocopy of the other thing, one thing on the one side happening at the other side too. So even though they have different write-offs, we try to mimic exactly the same structure at both ends. That way it gives it a perfect look. Okay, so that is that for balance. So symmetrical balance explains the direct opposite this way, having one side look like the other side, while the asymmetrical could be in any order, right? It could be one side looking the opposite of the other way, right? Like you have this to be dark and then this part is light. But we'll try as much as possible to make sure that the colors are balanced in all aspects. So we don't have bright colors in this section and then too much dark colors in this section. So it doesn't make it look one-sided that way. So that is that for yes. Let's talk about the next thing, which is reading. Now when you talk about reading, your mind might go to music. Okay, it is similar thing with that of music, where you see some things trying to create a particular flow or create a particular pattern, alright? Placements coming up in different forms to actually create a particular pattern. So let's quickly see this image. Now, this image actually depicts a random reading where you have different spacing created to actually depict the whole stuff. With the placement of different shapes at different points, we have created this reading of randomization, right? It could also be a regular reading where you have one thing repeated over and over and over and over. Now, in some of the designs we have, you normally see either this repeated over and over to create a particular reading there, maybe having that in different places. Now, a very simple case of this is your pointillism in art, right? You have that repeated, right? Not in random form, maybe in linear form, linear pointillism, that is also a regular flow. You can also have an alternating approach where this comes this way, this comes this way, next one goes this way, this comes this way. So that could be an alternating flow for your reading. Okay, so we could also have the flowing reading, which would have different things coming in, and then you have the progressive. Now, I would normally explain those things with, say, for example, this pattern that we normally have in some clothes, and then you have that maybe repeated over and over that way to form a particular reading. So you could have different things coming up to create a particular reading for you. It could be random, it could be regular, it could be alternating, flowing, and it could also be progressive. So that is that about reading. The major thing about reading is trying to create a pattern, either a random pattern, a regular pattern, or whatever structure of pattern. So that's a key thing about reading. So the next thing is emphasis. Now, this part is mostly neglected, but I want you to take this part very serious, because most of the designs for beginners, most of the beginners have this very issue of not putting emphasis in some design and putting the wrong emphasis in some design. For example, if you see this circles I have here, right, the simple emphasis that has been dragged to this already by just altering this. Now, for example, the thing I explained about a page, you having design in the page and you having a title or a theme here, and then you have a heading, and then you have a subheading. Now, we just created an emphasis with just making the heading bold. It doesn't literally mean that you must use a different font here. Okay, so just with the boldness of this, it creates a distinction between the heading and the other contents there. Okay, so that is that about emphasis. So let's see a simple example here. Right, I'm going to just clear this. Let's see an example here. Right, you see the text here is made big such that we will be able to know that this is actually the main area of focus. Right, like I said, for themes, for design, you could create emphasis. Now, in this case, even though we have the fiat as the main thing we want to concentrate on here, now the emphasis also has been dragged to the A by just giving it a different color and creating this little abstraction from with the other falling A. Right, so emphasis can be created in different forms. Another emphasis has been created here, all right, with just this color here, so it attracts you to this point. immediately. So you can use different approaches to create different emphasis and have the workflow very fine. Okay, so that's that about emphasis. Let's talk about white space. Okay, here I'll be talking about two main things. I'm going to digress a bit to talk about alignment. Okay, not really alignment, but talk about margins or paddings. Right? For some of you who are web designers, you hear of padding too. But for those of you who are just graphic designers, right, you'd be hearing of margin. Okay, some of my students who have mentored before, you would hear me saying, make sure you take margin very serious. Now, you could have a very nice design that is as fine as this, and then you're having your write-ups around this way. Now, with the structure you have drawn up here, the design might look fine, you must have followed other rules, but if you miss giving this space somewhere around here, right, to just make sure that your design is positioned this way and have some breathing space around, that would cause an issue. It will make your design have some deficiency because it doesn't have some breathing space around it. Now, another section is also making the design have some breathing text space between the text. For example, you have this write-up as a group, you also have another one as a group. But instead of having them separate this way, you arrange them this way. The first group is here and the second group is here immediately. Now, this doesn't create a clear distinction and it doesn't give the images enough, the write-ups enough breathing space. So this here is a poor design while this is a good approach. So it is necessary to know how to apply the white space clearly. Alright. The second approach for white space I'll be talking about is your negative spacing. So if I was talking about white space majorly, we actually talk about negative spacing more. Right, and I'm going to be showing us some examples of the negative spacing and what it can do for us. Example here, the first one is this very icon here, right? It looks as if there is another different animal trying to hug the first animal. While the main thing we draw was, you drew this white stuff, right? And then having a dot here. So the main aim for negative spacing is to create that imagination, that completion of the design in the user's head. That is one. The second one here is we are seeing E here, but the default thing we saw here is just the plug and another thing here, maybe the receiving end or something, right? Electric head, socket head or something, then the receiving end there, right? So but with the negative spacing, we've been able to create letter E, which represents the company name. So this is also very essential to create some kind of quality look for brands and help them send a message easily. So it mustn't be a very large design, it mustn't be a very busy design. It could be very small and have clean aesthetics like this and still have clear information being passed across. So it is necessary to know the structure and then know how to utilize that. Another one is the popular FedEx logo, which has been used in most illustrations, and I'm going to use that again. Now you will notice this arrow. Most times, most people just ignore it and just begin FedEx. But this time, let me just quickly point at this arrow, and you would notice that just the combination of this E and X, bringing the closure together, bringing them very close like this, gives us this arrow symbol. And that has a very cool thing to explain about their brand, right? Explain that maybe they are moving forward, right? They are actually doing a particular thing or the other. So that would have a quality role to play in proper branding. So it is necessary to know that your logo mustn't look busy. With better white space, you could also send a lot of messages. That there are a whole lot of images or designs explaining white space. You can explore them and see how they work. So let's talk about hierarchy. Alright, about hierarchy, it's necessary to know there are different group of elements or different group of components, different group of shapes or images or text that you have in your design. It's necessary to arrange them according to the hierarchy. Right? You want one to be the main area of concentration, then followed by the next one, then followed by the next one. So it is necessary to understand the concept of hierarchy because you want one to be seen first, then the other to be seen next, and before the next one. So I want you to look here before looking at the other thing. So let's talk about this. In hierarchy here, you can see we want this bigger text to be seen here first before the other things. Same thing in this design, we want the focus to be on the lighted area, which is life, and then go over to the next thing, the date, and then you can now consider who produced it, and then the other different responses there. So the major thing is we want to create the hierarchy to attract attention, right? To attract attention. Now, on looking at this design first, you wouldn't be looking at this section. Even though this might be an important section, maybe a quote or something, right? You wouldn't be looking at this section. You'd firstly see the crown, which is boldly placed there. Then you see the hierarchy text. But by default, your eye might go to the hierarchy first before this, depending on how you're looking at this first. So after that, you wouldn't also come to jump to this very section. You would see this and this first before coming down to this. So the hierarchy matters a lot. The order of placement matters a lot. So if you actually want it to be seen first, it can be placed at the top. It can also be made bigger to be a point of attraction. The emphasis you lay on it would also make it have that ease of hierarchy. Right, so that is that. You can see the little example with this small icon I created here would explain to you how the hierarchy stuff works better. So let's talk about contrast. Very important topic, very important topic. For images, for text, for anything you have, there is a need for contrast. You have a write-up here. Hello, for example. And then you have this. At least bold in this one, and then you have another one here. But let's see, you want to make this John, hello John, for example. Now, with the contrast you created here, you have actually made this big, have more thickness or more dark view than this. Just with the boldness of this, that has created the contrast between these two. So you can't be having every single thing thick, like I explained already with the heading and subheading. So the heading can be thick while the subheading is light. So that's where you have a clear contrast between the two. So another way to also create a contrast is the lighting you have. So some things have to be bright while some things have to be dark. For example, here you have hues in white color while this is in black color, and then you have other text in black color here, and then this in white color. So you have a combination of light and dark section, both in the image. There's a light section, there's a dark section, right? So it is also necessary to note that while you're having contrast, the simple way to also apply contrast for example, if you have an image that has a bright view already, and then you want to use a bright text around that side. For example, here is dark, but here is not dark. Right, the simple thing that was done here to also ensure that we can see the text and it doesn't fuse in with this image is because shadow has been applied to this, right? So that shadow also creates the contrast. Now, it could also be shadow to make it dark. It could also be lightened up to, like this case of brave, right? We can have the lightening around it to also bring it to the close view that way, right, to create that contrast between that and the background, right? So that is also a necessary thing. Now in this image too, you can see the lighting behind this girl here, right, has also created a contrast between the background and the main image that has to be concentrated on. So if you look, you will see as if this is isolated somehow, right? And then the next thing that was isolated is the brave, as if it's isolated from the design that way. So you can easily focus on this and then go ahead to focus on the write-up and this new picture. So you can see the contrast has been also created even in this Disney pixel here. You have some level of shadows there that has been applied to give it that look it's having. So contrast is a very essential part of design that will help you have a nice view. Look at the section. Let's assume this color was left without a shadow. You would struggle to see some sections of the write-up. Alright, so it is necessary to utilize shadow to apply contrast, or utilize different colors to create your contrast, just as in this case. So assuming white is used here on this bright background, we'll have a shadow to also be very hard for us to use to read the content in this. Now this is a downloaded image. Don't bother yourself about trying to read the content because it's already not very clear enough. Alright, so let's go ahead to the next thing. Right, you see the next thing as repetition, right? And repetition has a very tangible role to play in different forms of design. Could have repetition playing a role in maybe creating a pattern, creating a texture, right? Or even creating a particular design form. So let's see this example. You have this person that lifted the hands up that way, forming this. This is repetition for creating a different animal. Alright, so creating a swan that way, right? That basis of repetition has helped create a very tangible view for this. You can see somebody wearing a headset, actually. This person wearing a headset with a bright header with repetition of the person in different colors. You can see the beautiful stuff that has been created out of this. A second case is this repetition here too, where you have the different shapes coming up this way and they're repeating in different forms that way. So it could be repeated but maybe turned in different directions or turned different angles to give different looks. So the key thing is repetition can be used in various forms to achieve different things in our design. Okay, let's talk about movement. Movement, as we may have it, is basic motion, all right? And one of the basic movements we know is motion graphics normal. Another basic movement you know could also be in applications. For example, you have an app that has arrows this way for slider images, and then maybe have some dots, all right? Maybe numbered 1, 2, 3. That could be a direction for movement. So it has a role to play for you. For example, you are a UI designer and you have specified particular slider and it's not having any movement specified. Okay, you can have the direction flowing, but with the movement direction being specific there, it will help you to know, okay, this is the exact thing we need to actually do. This is the direction we need to move. This is the direction we don't need to move. Okay, that will help. So for example, if there's no image at this section, we wouldn't need to have this. We don't need to have this. But if there's image at that section, we'll have that, and then this would go off. So that is that about movement. Let's see a quick example here. Now, movement can be also applied in different forms. You can see these images are slanted with the number alongside. That creates that view that this actually has to move in this direction, that way. Now, with numbering, it also gives you a clear direction of movement. You have to move from 1 to 2 to 3, and that way. And then with the direction, you can see we're coming back to this, right? With the emphasis laid on it, so we can come back to that, and then before coming down to this content again. So you see, with the whole thing that has been specified here, just with the bending of text, we have specified a direction that we want to flow in. And with the numbering, we have also specified the movement we want to use for the flow we have there. Okay, so let's talk about unity. Very, very important. Now, you have a design and you have different things on the screen. You have plenty of text on the screen, like I explained with the case of that heading and subheading. Now, if you have 2,000 headings and 5 million subheadings, you will need a structure for that. If you're a web designer, this is very important. If you're a graphic artist, this is very important. If you're a UI UX engineer, then this is also very important for you. Now, if you're starting any of this, also listen, because you have to take this. Now, if you have a heading, note the pattern of the heading you created. Or if you have a particular set of text or set of things you have on the screen that you want to have a flow for, note the exact pattern you've created and make sure that you follow that. So for example, you've created headings to always look this way. Make sure all headings look that way, except headings that are not in the level. For example, some of you who are web designers would have something like H1, H2, H3, and the likes, all right? This is heading 1. So for example, heading 1 want all heading 1s to be bold and have maybe size 20 pixels for the font size, right? Or 20 points, that's if you're using design softwares, right? 20 points. So for example, all heading 1 should be 20 points, or heading 2 should be say 18 points or 15 points, right? Or 15 pixels as the case may be. Then heading 3 should maybe be 12 pixels or 12 points as the case may be. Alright, so it is necessary to know the exact one or pattern you're flowing with. Now, if there are lists, they should have an order and there should be unity in your work, such that if there are lists and you are having another list somewhere else that is also a list, you have to follow the same principle. So, for example, you are having lists to appear this way. You should have all lists appear that way, not one appearing one way and then the other one appearing another way, and another one appearing another way. So that would make your work ununified. So it is necessary to note that unity is very necessary in your work to have that aesthetic look you want to have. Like the case we have here, have we are one as the main thing. I want you to be able to read we are one here. And then the next thing I want you to be able to read all of us belong to each other. Right, so with the unity here, we can easily relate the text here. Alright, so when you look at it, you just see we are one, and then you can go back to look at all of us belong to each other that way. So the unity there that has been created would allow the user be able to understand the concept you created and be able to get the information clearly because you've specified how you want them to flow. Okay, so an example here on Unity 2. Unity could also be on color. So here we have every single thing here unified just with color. You can see headings here, you have subheadings, headings, subheadings. You notice that all these headings have same size and same font. I don't have a heading here with a different font and the next one with a different font. Now you notice that every single thing has color blue, even though they are different images. We have that unified color for all of them. So you could have the unity coming in colors. It's not compulsory to have everything unified always in colors, right? It depends on the concept you want to drive for your design. So, but unity is also a crucial point which you can also use to make your design look great and awesome. So it is necessary to choose the aspect of unity you want them to have. Every single text here, if it's on a dark shade, has white. If it's on a light shade, has blue, right? So we have that unity within them. As the major colors to use, which is white and blue, we have that shade everywhere, right? So let's talk about the golden ratio. Okay, this is an aspect I would want you to pay attention to. This involves a little calculation, but I'm going to simplify it. I'm going to be explaining the main concept without the much calculation. Okay, so this is an aspect an aspect of design that most designers who create logos, who create flyers, who create different things actually adapt to create those things. You will see this concept on websites, you'll see it on different things. Different approaches has been used to actually make designs look easy. Now, this is an approach that helps layout work fine and easy. What is the golden ratio? The golden ratio is just a simple rule that explains that when you have a particular size, for example, a box, you can get a percentage, 61.8% of it to add to it to actually create the golden ratio, whereby the content on the first one doesn't exceed that point, and then the next one doesn't exceed the point. So we're going to be seeing more clarity with this. So this is the golden ratio that has been created. So this is the main content here, right? So whatever content we have flows within this space, all right? It flows within the space that has been created here, and then the next content flows within the space, right? It continues that way within the space that has been created, and continues on and on that way down to different levels. A simple example of this is your circles staying in those spaces, right? So if you have the circles staying in those spaces, you can see, right, even if we're having them, right, we can't exceed this box. For example, we have a letter, a write-up, we have that guided within this initial box and not overflowing out of the box, right? We want it to remain within this box and not going out of this box. So for example, this circle is bounded within this point, this next one is bounded within this point. So you might be asking, how do we actually get this set? So for example, if your size, the size you have is for example 5 inches, for example, if you have 5 inches, you need to get a particular percentage of it, which is the 61.8%, or just take it to the aspect ratio of 1 is to 1.168. So once you get that ratio, right, the first box is this, and then the next one is 1.618, sorry, right? With that combination, you should be able to have the golden ratio created, and with that you have this. So this is the combination of the initial box and then the second box, right, giving you the full view for your design. And any size of document you have, you can split this ratio over and over to create different views that you want to have, and with that you'll be guided on how to place your content all around the design. Okay, so that is that. Let's quickly see this example. Now, like I explained, it's used in creation of logo, right? In this very logo for Pepsi, you can see it is adopted. The first one was created, this is the main shape, right? And then we have the smaller version of it created with this second one that has been created. So that gives us the arrangement that we can use to place and get the different cuts within the design. Another example is this. We've seen a whole lot of them here, right? For a business card that has been arranged here, you see the name was placed somewhere around here, and then you see the structure where the boundary ends for this guy, and you see here the spacing comes in. Alright, so the box that has been created here keeps this bounded within this section, while this box that has been created in this section keeps also this bounded in this section, while this spacing is also necessary for other contents that will possibly be around here if there is need for any. So you always use the structure to place content. So let's assume there's no need for other contents. You can have one content just here, so you don't need to still keep creating more and more. So this ends here, and then we can go ahead to create other things. So that is that about this golden ratio. You still have logos, other different logos that have been created with this approach. So the major thing is we use that to create the different shape sizes. You can as you can see in this example we had here, you can use that to get different shape sizes and then use that to recreate whatever you want to create. So on those levels, you can have the different sizes you created. Please take up some time to go through how we created it by this, right? We created the first one, got 61% of the size, and merged the two to get this. Alright, so this was placed inside this one. Alright, so with that placed inside, we got this very part now. Alright, so that is that with the golden ratio. Okay, so if you have any questions about the golden ratio, I would like you to drop your comments in the comment section later, or just mail me and I'll reply your mail. Right, so just go through the different structures. You can browse for more examples on golden ratio. You will see different awesome stuff that has been achieved with this, and you can see the basic thing we are using this for here in this kind of designs, your flyers, your business cards, your letterheads, is to be able to arrange a proper layout, to have a proper layout structure. Okay, so the last thing we'll be talking about in this section is how you should align texts. And this is a very, very important aspect, because most times, yes, we normally tell designers to just use alignment tools. So you go and use the alignment property and then you align things, and they wouldn't look very perfect. They will look jagged like this when we want them to look very fine. Sometimes they will just appear on a very straight line when they actually don't have the same proportion, right? Like what we have here, you can see this is not having same proportion with this, right? Even though this is having, right, you see different aspects come up there. So it is necessary to know how to align text and allow them properly. So the first one say with letters with straight strokes aligned on the baseline. So if you have them having straight strokes like your sans, right, the sans serif, right, or you have this just plain sans, right, you have them not having spikes that way. So you can align them as far as they have straight strokes, right, so they can align on the baseline this way. For example, if your Q is here, it doesn't have a straight stroke, it has a pointed stroke, so it would exceed the line. Right? So it is necessary to note which one to use and to know how to position them. Okay, so the next one is the letters with curve hang over the margin. Right? Letters with curve hang over the margin. So you see your C, your O, your E, and other alphabets that are close to that, your S, right? Right, they hang over the margin, right? So if there is a line, the imaginary line drawn, you see those things should go a bit. Now, if you have something like L here, it will still obey the first principle, which is this. So with that, it will make this look balanced and not look off points that way. So it is necessary to note which form they have and then how to combine them. Okay, so that is necessary to note that letters with curve hang over the margin, right? So whichever letter you have that has curve, whether it's G, like this one here, or S, or O, or E, or C. Now the E that is applicable to this is the small letter E, because the capital letter E already has a straight stroke, right? So that is that. Let's talk about the next one. Say letters with strong vertical stem align on the margin. So for example, your N, that is not a serif, because serifs come with spikes this way. Most of the serifs come with spikes, so that wouldn't hold for this. Right? We'll see in the case for serifs later. Right? So this has a strong vertical stem. Now, some other fonts would have stems, like for example, M would come to cross a bit. Your M's that are wide this way. There are some other ones where you have M to be straight. You have M to be straight. That can go with this. But some other fonts where you have M to be exceeding this way, then it has to follow the same rule with these guys and adjust itself. So let's see the next one. Okay, so those M that I talked about can follow this rule. So letter with an angled stem, they hang over the margin. So if you have M that's actually is not having a straight stem, then it should hang over the margin this way. It should cut that way. So you can see like this A, like your X, like your Y, your A here, your V, and the like. So it is necessary to take note of them and take note of how they work. Okay, let's talk about the next one, which is letters with serifs. Okay, and this is an important section, right? There are so many letters with serifs you could have abstract fonts that have serifs. You could have direct serif fonts that way, right? You have your sans serif that have some smooth edges and then have some spike at some point. So it is necessary to note that all of them that has the spikes would hang over the margin that way. So you don't come to align them this way straight without taking note of that margin, right? So it is necessary to note the structure they are taking, so you don't align them with something that has straight stem that way, and then at the end of the day making it look unaligned, right? So if this has a straight stem, then it should come inside normal, while this that has a spike would come outside. So if this was a stem, you can see it would tally well with the stem of this one, just like that. Alright, so that is the need to maintain the structure for this very text. So this will be the part where we'll be drawing the curtain for this training. Okay, you have a lot of questions that you want to ask. You have a lot of things that you want to still have clarity on. The comment section is there for you, and I would like you to utilize it. After now, some of you would still want to follow up on different things. So I'm going to just give this few advice. Right. First is that we have a course that is on different design packages. We have Photoshop course that explains how to use Photoshop tools to create wonderful designs. Now, the scope of this class is to be able to cover things like what we've talked about, the different rules that are necessary. All right. Now, if you're a designer already, right, you have learned a lot already. If you are a new person in design, you have also learned a lot. The necessary thing is to be able to put what you've learned into action. Now, if you have not learned how to use a particular tool, for example, you use some of the old softwares or some of the softwares that are not really giving you what you want, you want to learn a new one, we are already open to give you the proper training. I'll have platforms that we have our designers on and attend to them each time. Okay, we have a closed WhatsApp group for all those who subscribe for the main course, who come in to learn the main course. Now, from time to time, we would also be putting up videos, possibly weekly or in 2 weeks intervals. We'll be putting up videos on this platform here, on YouTube here, and we'll be making sure that those videos get to you and you get to see them. So the best way to actually get yourself acquainted to those videos or get notified is for you to sign up. So just hit the bell icon and set the notification. Just subscribe. All right, subscribe to this channel, and then from time to time you'll be getting our notifications of different trainings like this one and even more advanced ones that will be coming up. Now, for those in our closed group already, they have the leverage they have. For those who are not yet in the closed group that will want to also be in a closed group or be giving us a better avenue to join the closed group on Facebook, where most of you can interact with yourselves and ask questions and have your problems being resolved by fellow experts or other persons who would come in to attend to one thing or the other. Now, but apart from that, for those who are actually in the main closed group, which is a WhatsApp group, they'll be getting some more content, they'll be getting some more premium stuff, trainings, and what have you. All right. So if you want to learn a particular design tool, we'll be having the Photoshop course that explains how to create flyers, create different things, and a whole lot actually with following the different principles that were stated here. That will be available for all those who would like to join. Right, after this video you can check the description to see the link to sign up for the course. Right, once you sign up and make your payments, you'll be able to have access to the course and know other necessary things you need to know. You would enjoy other benefits. Now, the extra thing that I'm going to be giving out in this is this. For all those of you who have watched to this point, you are qualified to also get a certificate for the learning you've taken this moment. So the simple thing you can do for yourself is use the link that I'm also going to be putting here after this video in the description link below. So you can use that link to go and obtain your certificate. All right, you can get a certificate and use that for placement for jobs. Now, for all those who get a certificate, there will be a short training on Zoom for you. This is especially for you, and for all those who get a certificate, this training actually covers user experience. User experience has been confused for interface design. All right, that is not the same thing. All right, we'll be explaining user experience in this in-depth form, and I'll also be sharing one quality secret of how to get remote jobs. Right, so if you are already a designer, that will be a better avenue to start working for international companies. If you're not a designer, I would encourage you to sign up for the course for Photoshop and get started with that. Now, after your learning, you have access to other certifications that you can also use to land better jobs and get noticed by even top brands and top companies around the globe. Okay, so we're drawing the curtain here. It's nice time having you around, and my name is Godson. Again, let me just quickly still show you my name in case you forget. I would like you to just join us on social media. Alright, I'm going to scroll back to the initial thing we have there. So I would like you to join us on social media, follow me on social media to see more things about what we do. Alright, my personal handle is at Godson Chinweuba in all the social media platforms we have. And then for the company, we have at Gochinat. So twitter.com/Gochinat, facebook.com/Gochinat, instagram.com/Gochinat, dribble.com/Gochinat, behance.com/Gochinat, linkedin.com/Gochinat. That way, all right, you have my own personal handle to be /Godson. Just replace same thing. So /Godson Chinweuba, sorry. So you have /Godson Chinweuba that way, and then the other one /Gochinat. Alright, so if it is Facebook, you want to see us, just add facebook.com to this. If it is Instagram, just add instagram.com to this. Alright, so that is that. I hope you enjoyed the class. I would like to know the part you enjoyed the most, the part that got you stirred up the most, the errors you've been having that you feel that this class has corrected for you. Please share your testimonies on WhatsApp, share what you've learned so people can see. Share the link to the class. I'll still leave it up for some time before taking the cost down from here, because it's actually premium cost that you've been able to go through. So please don't waste this opportunity that you've used to learn this. Please make sure that you apply whatever things that you've learned from this course. I want to see you at the top, and I hope that you'll be there. Do have a blessed day.